I never knew him except as a dead man for a lot of years. And for the first time, I heard Blaze sing about a year ago. And it was really eerie to hear a man singing and hear all the poignance in his voice and realize what he must have been to his friends, what he must have been to the people about him, and who he was to me as just a dead body that I had to contend with in a trial. It was clear Kerry January, our client, had walked into the room, leveled a loaded rifle at Blaze, and shot him through the heart. Blaze was unarmed. And Patrick looked at me and he said, "How the hell do you think we defend this?" And I said, "Why, Patrick, we attack these bastards. We put them on the defensive. Patrick, this is self-defense. Blaze Foley died because he's a beast." We had to contend with the fact that we had a guy who didn't have a weapon any place near him. I think the riskiest part of our strategy was that in looking through the pictures, the nearest thing I could find, I'm talking about the crime scene photos, the nearest thing I could find was a blue broomstick that was sitting in the corner of the room where the shooting took place. I started laughing and I said to Patrick, I said, "Gann, there's the weapon Foley was going to grab." He said, "A broomstick?" I said, "What else? Can you point out another weapon in the room?" We never hesitated. I said, "A man died here who deserved to be killed." And I said, "And there's nothing to be sorry about here." I said, "If there's any sympathy in this courtroom, it should be generated for Kerry January, who has to sit here on trial for saving his own life." Their version of facts presented to the jury can best be summed up as, there's no mystery here. This was a killing. While they were good about articulating the facts as they saw them, they couldn't present the case. They couldn't pull it out of their witnesses. They failed to make that case real in the eyes of the jury. I'm sorry. The brutal truth is Pat and I ate them alive in presenting evidence. We took their witnesses and bent them. His father, Concho January, had testified to the jury that, and if I remember the quote, Kerry killed Blaze in cold blood. This was cold-blooded murder. He was given over to me on cross, and I said, "You have, I take it, known your son all of his life." "Yes, I have." I said, "Now, I want you to take your time and point your son out to the jury." He looked. And he looked at the next row, and finally looked to the back of the courtroom. And he couldn't identify his flesh and blood, who was about 15 feet away from him, sitting next to me. How hard is it to spot a black man between two white lawyers? Concho couldn't identify Kerry in court, and the reason for that was I knew that Concho would already be so incredibly drunk he couldn't see 10 feet in front of him. And then, of course, they brought on all the boohoo people, which I thought was a severe mistake. They're my favorite kind of witness because they're so biased. You know, they're so close to him that you're just going to peel them. He was your friend. That's right. And one thing that we know is true, you hate the man sitting next to me, don't you? You want to see this man in prison for the rest of his life. And you're here for the state of Texas to help accomplish that. You are on a mission for God, aren't you? Oh, wait. That was where they got themselves into great trouble. I can remember two instances, alleged blood on the mattress and a bullet hole in the wall, because they wanted to support the inference that Kerry had actually fired twice, once missing him and once through the heart. They put this poor cop up there, this investigator, to say, "Yeah, that's a bullet hole in state's number 123. Well, when he came over to me, I picked it up and I said, "Now, I agree this is a nice picture of a hole in the wall." I said, "Now I want you to tell the jury how you can testify under oath that this is a bullet hole." I said, "Take all the time you want." I said, "You know what forensics are, don't you? There are certain forensic clues in a hole made by a bullet." He didn't know. And it was worse for the so-called blood. There is a way to test for blood. Did they do it? No. But did they sponsor some poor chump to say that it was blood? Oh, yeah. It was like they were taking human beings and saying, You want to stick these in the garbage disposal? That's what we made of those witnesses. We were careful to get into evidence the fact that the reason that Kerry and Blaze came into conflict was that Kerry felt that Blaze was exploiting his father. I asked Kerry about how it came to be that he got crosswise with Blaze, what inspired that. And, Kerry explained that Concho lived on a Social Security check, that check no sooner hit the mailbox than here appeared Blaze Foley dragging his guitar, maybe with one or two other friends, and they'd commence drinking and would drink until the well had run dry, till Concho's money was gone. And Kerry felt it wasn't fair to him, to Kerry. He said, I was caring for my father. We needed that money. He said, so I confronted Blaze and said, look, it's not right that you come here and drink up my dad's money. That was what sparked the feud that finally led to Blaze and his friends just beating hell out of Kerry with axe handles. That was the underlying argument. You bet he thought his dad was being exploited. It's easy to be critical of your opponents. Without being harsh, let me say this. I think if there had been an older, experienced prosecutor at that table, it would have made a lot of difference. I think, for example, all that nonsense of mine about the blue broomstick, an experienced prosecutor would have stood up and said, ladies and gentlemen, I don't give a damn if there were 40 broomsticks in that room. Those aren't deadly weapons. This man walked into this room, had a grudge, shot Blaze Foley through the heart, and killed him. That's what this case is about. Not blue broomsticks and not Mr. Sawyer's axe handle. That's what someone else would have done to me. I remember I began by flatly stating that Blaze Foley was dead, and that was a fact. I said, we should be glad he's dead. I said, this man was the architect of his own demise. I said, just look at it. Look at it. I said, this drunken man, this man who writes pretty songs, this man who is beloved by the people out here in the music community. I said, but here's the problem. When he had a lot to drink, he was another person. He's the person who went to jail constantly. He's the man who could laugh about sleeping in trash containers. And he's the man who took this axe handle and with two other men chased down Kerry January. I said, oh yeah, they love him. But they didn't see the man that took this axe handle, did they? I said, they didn't know. I said, do you wonder? Do you? Do you wonder what it feels like to be hit with one of these? Do you wonder what it's like to be a man being beaten like a dog? I said, look at it. And then I hit his table. I told them that self-defense is about perception. If I, and only through the eyes of the actor, that happens to be the law, not through your eyes, not through anyone else's eyes, through the eyes of the actor, Kerry January, if his perception was that he reasonably believed Blaze Foley was about to attack him again and use deadly force again, because this is a deadly instrument, then he was justified in killing him. And it doesn't matter how anyone feels. It's about whether you can put yourself in his position. A man who'd been savagely beaten by Blaze Foley, and say, you know what? I don't think I'd have given him a second chance either. You know what? I think I'd have squeezed that trigger. You know what? I am a man, and you can't treat me like a dog. That was pretty much the summation I gave that jury. I was pleased as hell, obviously, to get the not guilty verdict on a professional level, particularly pleased that it happened so quickly, because that told me that no one ever seriously entertained the state's argument, which I think, though, added some sting to the defeat for them. I don't know that they ever knew until the very end, until argument, what had happened. They saw their trial, but they didn't see our trial. I told Kerry that if I were in his position, I'd move. I said, you've got people here who dislike you. You've got cops who think you just slid, or skated rather, on a murder charge. You've got an entire community of musicians who'd love to see you, Dad. I said, if you have any place on earth to go, leave. And he did. He moved to Los Angeles, went to college, started working, doing social work. So he's led a good life. That's not always true when you get someone off. But he really did walk out of that courtroom and change his life, and I'm glad he did.